Today we're going to be unboxing the 6.5-inch plunge track saw from Milwaukee Tool. You can actually buy this saw in a kit that comes with a battery, charger, and this Packout box that you see here. I actually bought these separately for two reasons. One is I wanted the ability to configure the inside of this to customize it for storage that I'd like. And the second is that I actually wanted to pick up the Rapid Charger that has a 2-base station and get a bigger battery. So I got the 8 amp hour XC high output battery from Milwaukee to go with this tool. Time to get to work. All right, so quickly let's review what's in the box. This is the model 2831-20 and it's the 6.5-inch plunge track saw. You also get the dust bag, the blade, and the splinter guard. That little device that came in there was a splinter guard. Note the battery and charger is not included. Blade diameter is 6.5 inches. The arbor size is 20 millimeters. So it's important if you're using another 6.5-inch blade to pay attention to the arbor size. Max cutting capacity, there are two of them listed for 0 and 45 degrees. So it's a 2.25 inch plunge max with 1 5/8 inch at 45 degrees. It operates at a variable speed, 2,500 to 5,600 RPM. Normally you keep it at the 5,600 setting, the max setting, unless you're working with material where you'd want a slower cutting speed. There are 6 steps to the speed setting, and the tool itself weighs 8.7 pounds. Now to run a track saw, you can run this without the track, but where you really get the accuracy and why people buy these is to have the track with it. So we're going to open up this. You can see how well packaged it is for shipping so that you don't end up damaging it, or it doesn't get damaged when it's moving around. And all that cardboard is just to hold this. So this is the 55-inch track for the track saw, and it'll sit right in there. I'll go through the features of this here in just a minute. You can see that I've got 2 tracks and then these connectors, these rail connectors, and this will allow me to connect the 2 tracks together so I can rip down full sheets of plywood. That'll essentially give me a 110-inch track. So this is an accessory that doesn't come with the tracks. You have to buy this separately, and their part number is 48-08-0574 for that. That also comes with the tools or hardware that you'll need to install it into the track. So that's it. That's what comes in the box. You get the tool, the plunge saw itself, the dust collector bag right here, 1 saw blade. You don't get a battery. You get this guide, and you don't get the track or the track connector. So let's just walk around the saw for a quick minute and look at some of the features of it. So over here on this side, we see that we have the blade release. So you have to push this in to begin the plunge. And then the trigger to start the tool is right here. So it's a 2-step motion where you push in with your thumb and you pull with the trigger. Notice I don't have the battery in for safety. Now to install the blade, it is pretty easy. So I did take the arbor guard and the screw off. Normally the tool is locked like this, but if you push the plunge button, you can move it down. But to change the blade, we actually want to move this into the locked position, as you can see right here. And then this locks out the controls, but it allows the blade to plunge down and then stop right here. There's a mechanism, I don't know if you could see that very easily, right here where this little device jumps into the track and it catches a spot where it locks it into place. Then inside here we've got a blade lock or a spin lock right here. So if we were taking a blade off, we had to loosen the arbor, we'd do that, but we're going to use that to tighten it up as well. We're going to install the blade, and if you look at the blade here, you see the rotation mark here and on this side as well. The saw is going to be moving this direction, so we want the cutting surface to be forward. So the other side of the blade doesn't have the logo, doesn't have the full logo, color logo and everything on it, so that's another easy way to tell. We insert it right up here. Then you'll notice that this has grooves in it that line up with the grooves right here. So we'll put that right in place, and then we can install our lock screw here. It's a standard thread, so it turns in clockwise direction to tighten. And to finish it off, we could take the tool out of here, but I actually just prefer to use a 5mm hex wrench. And if you notice, I'm turning it, but it turns the blade. So again, if we push that lock down here, and then turn the blade simultaneously, it will let you push that all the way down. Then we can tighten the blade in place. To release it, we're just going to click this to the unlock position, push the plunge button, and the tool will return back up to normal. I mentioned before that we've got variable speed with this, so this is how you adjust the speed of it. It's a setting from 1 to 6. From 1, which is 2,500 RPMs, all the way up to 6, which is the 5,600 RPMs that this tool delivers. Continuing around the tool, we've got a couple of things for the plunge depth, and you can easily read these numbers. So if we want to set it to 1 inch, we'd set it right to here. And it's red right where the top of the red mark is. There are two marks here. This one with the 2 lines is for with the track, and that's where you'll be using this tool most of the time. But if you are making cuts without the track, you can also measure your plunge right here. So if I wanted to set it to 1 inch without the track, that would be the setting that I'd use right there. There is a micro adjustment knob right here. So if you do want to adjust the depth for more precision work, you can turn this knob, and that's pretty handy. That adjusts where this knob rests up against the stop here that you set for the depth. And a final thing on plunge depth, we do have a scoring guide. So if you set that, it's only going to let it plunge to a certain depth. So notice I've got the full depth set down here, but it does stop the saw right here. That allows us to do a scoring mark. So if you just want to score your project and then later go back and cut it by hand, you can set this right here for automatic depth guide to scoring mark. Now I mentioned the splinter guard that it comes with. The tool does actually have a pre-installed splinter guard, which you see right here, but it only comes down to the set depth. So this one actually allows you to adjust the depth. You look at these side by side. We'll go ahead and remove this one. They look very similar. The big difference between these two is that this has a set screw versus a locking mechanism on this one. And this one you can't see through. This one allows you to see the depth of the material as you cut it. And then you can see with this one we have the ability to adjust the depth of the splinter guard from fully extended, which is the case with this one, to partially extended for different depths, for different thicknesses of material. One reason why you may choose this splinter guard over this one is because if you look here, the tool now has an extra protrusion on the side with that installed. And having this one installed gives you a nice flush surface right here. Let's talk for a minute about dust collection now with this tool. So you do have a dust port. It is adjustable in angle. And it comes with a dust bag, and the dust bag works pretty well, but this is going to be something that you would probably use more for like portable or outside kind of uses. But in the shop, I'm going to use a dust hose just like this. The last thing that I'll mention about dust collection is that Milwaukee does recommend in the instruction manual that you have some type of thing connected to the dust port here, whether it's a shop vac hose or the dust bag. They don't want you using this tool with an open port because that can throw debris back at you or up to your eyes. And it does do a pretty good job collecting the dust or debris and shooting it through that port. So you definitely want to be safe by having something connected right here. Now if we go over to this side of the saw, we can see a couple of things related to the angle. So we do have a nice depth guide that shows from 0 to 45 degrees. And to adjust it, we just loosen up these tensioner screws right here. And then we can tip the blade all the way over, and it does stop right at 45 degrees by default. So if I let it just go loose, it'll go to 45. It does have a feature on the track because the track goes from -1 to 48 to allow us to go just a little bit further. And so to do that, we would hit this slow release right here. And then that'll allow it to go all the way over to 48, or right here to go to -1. And so when you have that engaged, if you move it past the mark, so past 0 in this case, you'll hear it release, and then it'll stop right at 45 and at 0 again. On the front here, we do have a selector as well. If we pull it out and turn it to 22.5, now if we drop this because it's still loose, it'll stop right at 22.5 degrees automatically. So 0 to 22.5 degrees. And we bring that back right there to go to the full tilt. All right, so let's take a look at the track. So we've got a nice aluminum track, and the tool will actually fit on a couple of other different brand tracks. ProTech, Festool, and Makita tracks are all compatible with this saw. However, there's one feature in this track that's unique to this saw, and that's the anti-tip feature. Now, how the anti-tip feature works is if we look right here, we see this little edge right here on this part of the guide. So the saw itself, when it's resting in the track, if you have the anti-tip feature engaged, will catch this and prevent the saw from tipping over if you have the saw at a 45-degree bevel. So the first time you install a saw onto the track, you're going to need to marry it or set it to the specific track that you're using. You notice that there's a lot of play right here in the track, and you wouldn't get an accurate cut if you had that. But to avoid that, we take these two and we just twist them clockwise. If you do it too tight, then the saw itself will not move, it'll catch the track. So you want to go to that point and then back it off just enough where the saw will slide freely, and then we don't have any play with the saw moving along the track. That anti-tip feature that I just mentioned is this cam lock right here. So with that engaged, we push the button down and we turn it counterclockwise. And then if we move this over to 45 degrees, notice when I let go of the saw, it will not fall off the track. If you're using another manufacturer track with this saw, it would not catch with this guide right here, and it would function just like this. So now I took it off, and if I move the saw over and then let go here, you'll see that it falls off. So if you're using the saw with another manufacturer's track, you want to keep a hand right here on the saw as you're guiding it along the work. So Milwaukee does make a 106-inch track. This is two 55-inch sections that are joined together. And one of the hesitations that I had initially in doing this setup is that I was concerned that the saw would catch going right through here. But I actually found that when I put the saw in the track and move it over, it glides over pretty easily. I hear sometimes going backwards if I do, a little bit of a catch, but I don't hear it going this direction. I did have to play with the tracks, the two different ends, to connect them to find the ends that fit the best together right here. The first time that you run a tool through the track, the tool will cut this rubber piece on the outer edge to match the saw. So you'll actually end up with this little strip of rubber, which is totally normal. This is a replaceable piece. So if you were to use a different saw with the track, you could take this off and replace it with a different piece and then cut it specific to that. But once you do that, then the edge of that rubber becomes the zero set point to run your mark for cutting. All right, time to get to work. I want to show you guys a cut here, and I'll just take a little strip off the end here to show you how well this works. All right, so just looking at the cut itself, it actually looks super clean all the way down the run here. Now granted, this is not a 2.5-inch thick piece of wood, but it actually did pretty well just with that cut right there. Pretty good run of the track saw. We broke down 2 full sheets of plywood right here into these 5-inch strips, and I have a total of 18 of them. So if you want to see how we did for battery, I checked this earlier and it showed, yep, right there about half. So we have half the battery used over 2 sheets of plywood. Total of 18 cuts, because I did end up with 2 little offcuts right here. And the last thing that I want to mention is the dust collection. So you can see right here that there is a little bit of fine dust that it left behind, both on top of the foam support as well as down here on the floor. However, and you might be able just to see it from the side of the bucket here. If we take a look inside our bucket for dust collection, you can see that it actually picked up a lot more inside the bucket than what landed on the ground. So I'd say that it did an excellent job capturing a majority of the dust. A couple of things you probably noticed that don't come standard. One is this little dust cover right here. That's something that I bought from a guy named Drew Witt, who owns Whitworks. And if you haven't checked him out, go ahead and check out his channel. He has a nice online store too where you can buy aftermarket 3D printed parts. I also purchased these 3D printed rail guards, which you see right here. Those are really nice. They actually look OEM on the track. It helps protect your fingers from the sharp edges of the track, or protect the hose from snagging the edge of the track. So that's really good. I also bought this TSO GRS 16PE guide rail. This is a square and you could use it from either side. Now the one thing I will mention with this particular model is that to get it on the track you have to insert this guide into the end. So you do have to actually take the rail guard protector off on the end to be able to get this in. It's a little difficult to do one-handed. But you can see right here how that slips in. And just secures right there, and now we have a nice perfect 90-degree angle for referencing our cuts. You can then reinstall this cap and then just leave it in place like that when you're using it. So does a Milwaukee Fuel 6.5-inch plunge circular saw live up to all the hype? You know, I was actually a little concerned when I bought this because I was hearing really good things about Festool Makita, and I did see some good reviews on this, but I wasn't really sure until I picked it up. And I definitely say yes for me. This feels like a very heavy-duty tool. It's something that I think I'll have for a long time. It definitely made quick work of the boards here that I cut up today. If you're looking for a track saw and you're in the Milwaukee system with batteries, it's going to be a pretty good value for you. If you don't have the battery system and are just getting into it like I am, it's still a pretty good value because you get the tool that's cordless and all the functionality and quality that comes with the Milwaukee brand. So definitely like that. Would highly recommend it to anybody. So the other question is, do you need a track saw, or can you just use something like this track right here? This is a Bora track that I purchased before I had the track saw. The answer to that's yes. There is a caveat with this in that it doesn't hold the saw right up against the track. So if you're somebody that tends to push a little bit as you work, or you just want the extra security and the accuracy that the track gives you, then a track saw will function much better than a guide like this. But this is definitely a cheaper option if you're just starting out and you want to buy a guide for straight cuts. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you're wondering what I'm building right here, this is for a French cleat wall system that I'll be installing in the garage. And I'm making a video on that as well. So check back next week to see that video. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button if you found value in this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.